Welcome to the Agile Coaching Exchange. It's the first for 2025, and I'm very excited to be hosting Jon Spruce here tonight. Jon Spruce, as he waves, is a certified Scrum trainer, a trainer in many different things. And I got to know Sprucey as when he went through his CST journey with Jan and my partner John, and they had their countless times practicing and the stories that they were telling. But Jon is a talented agile coach as well as a trainer. And what I love about Jon is that he's worked at so many different companies and got that experience. And it's less about just train, and it's more about how can we pragmatically apply some of these things. And Jon's not only a coach and a trainer in lots of different agile methods, but he's also great at helping people with terms of marketing and how they can promote themselves. And that's a good reason to have him along tonight in ever such a difficult market times that many of us find ourselves in. So it's a pleasure to hand you over to Jon tonight. Take it away.
Thank you very much, Helen. Welcome, everybody. I'm just going to share my screen because we're going to go through a presentation today. I'm going to be asking some questions along the way. It's quite an interactive presentation using a platform called Aha Slides. So you should be able to join this as we go through the session. Don't worry too much about getting involved now. I'll show you where the QR code is and stuff in a minute. So my name's Jon Spruce. I'm here to take you through a journey about agile value and trying to bridge the gap. There seems to be uh, a very hard market out there at the moment, and it seems to be a little bit more endemic of the overall issue that we often have about how to articulate value when it comes to agility and agile in the workplace. And I think as people are trying to find work, it's even more pertinent to be able to articulate the actual value of the work we do. So today is a bit of a guide and some practical tips, and well as sort of talking to you guys about what you want to get out of this as well. So we're going to have some interactivity throughout as well. Hopefully everyone can see my slides. It should say welcome. I'm looking for a thumbs up if everyone can see that. Yeah, I got thumbs up there. Great. Thank you so much. Okay, so welcome. As Helen said, I have worked at an inordinate amount of companies. Started out in the British Army as an avionics engineer a very long time ago when I was half the size I am today and I had a lot more hair. And when I came out, it was the late 90s. And after medically getting discharged with my damaged knee, and it was like, well, what do I do now? I can't really work on helicopters. There's not many of them to work around on. And I retrained into web development. It seemed like a natural progression at the time. It was the late 90s. It was the big dot-com boom was just around the corner. And I kind of went into project management after that. So I worked in that kind of space for a while, worked into advertising and marketing. And as you can see here, worked with brands like Nike and Beats by Dre to help them with their global TV adverts and mobile apps and websites. And I kept on building these small teams and helping them deliver really interesting products. And then moving on after I fixed that and moved into the next thing like the Littlest Hobo to try and help people out. I've worked in lots of organizations from Lloyds Banking Group and Barclays through large scale transformation, in defense like MBDA, BAE Systems, even helped Subway launch their vegan meatball marinara during the global pandemic. Again, most of these places don't seem like they have a common thread, but the common thread is people. We're all building complex things in lots of different environments. And as I coach and support people in their own growth journeys, I've noticed that there's this difficulty that people have in being able to articulate the impact of their work and the why they do things. Often people talk about how and what, but they don't talk about why and the impact. So I'm going to talk more about that today. I'm going to pull on some of these threads as we go through as well. So, bit of an overview. We're going to talk about the agile value gap. We're going to write your own story, help you build visibility, and look at how that's going to actually make a change for you as well. Um, should be quite fast paced. If you need me to slow down, please put it in the chat or raise a hand, and Helen and or Ben will kind of ask me to slow down. If English isn't your first language, I do talk very quick. I have tried to hold back on the caffeine today, but if I am starting to speed up, please do let me know. So, Aha Slides is interactive. You can get involved. If you have a mobile device, you can visit that QR code there and get involved into the actual talk itself, or you can visit that URL at the top, aharslides.com/ace spruce, which I do realize Doesn't mean that I'm ace. It's just mean that we're talking about the Agile Coaching Exchange. I just realized that when I looked at that, Helen. So if people want to get involved, you can see people starting to join the board now, which is we have 8 people joining. I'll give it another minute or so to join in, and you can get involved. We're going to do some polls and some word clouds and that kind of thing as well. So let's see what we've got going on. Okay, we have 10 people on the board out of the people on the room, 11. I'll move on to the next slide, but you can still join this if you go to the URL along the top. Let's have a look. The very first thing you should see is a question. What words come to mind when you think about the agile job market today? And you can answer this directly on your mobile device and it should stop popping up. I did mention this to Ben earlier on, actually. There is a profanity filter. So if you are really upset, you can still be free to write it in there, but it'll probably star it out if you write some profanity or some swear words about how you're feeling about that. All right, we should start seeing some things popping into the room. We have 18. There we go. Tough, consolidating, confused, exploitative. That's interesting. Maturing. Well, that's positive. Value addition, uncertainty. There's not much about. Okay. No clue. It's tricky. That's an interesting one. Tricky. The word cloud does grow if you write some competitive, confused. All right, I can I'll leave the submissions open for people to have a look, add some more stuff. It's interesting some of the themes here that are popping up. Buzzword driven, crowded, comparability with AI. There's a lot of interesting challenges. You're absolutely right. I think the big theme through most of these is that we have quite a bit of challenges coming through. And I think I would agree with that. There is a lot of challenges in the market. It's really difficult right now. Let's go to the next slide. I think we were looking at supporting high-performing teams. That was a dream of being an agile coach or being a scrum master, being an agile practitioner of some kind. How do we help create value and support high-performing teams? Quite often we were seen, however, as Jira administrators, and a lot of the work we did got commoditized into this kind of just look after the board, assign tickets to people, and if you're in an environment where that was kind of prevalent, my heart goes out to you for sure. It's quite hard sometimes to be demonstrating value when you're not given the space for it. And of course, we can also do lots of very fun retros, uh, and there's a bunch of us in the community who love a good retro, love good Lego, Marshmallow Towers, all that kind of good stuff. But it's only really impactful if we have actual actions that come from it. And oftentimes we have lots of fun, but people can't see the action from it and therefore can't see the impact. Maybe there's a correlation there. So where's the value? This is kind of the big question. Organizations are shedding agilists over the last year or so. I think part of it is because we can't really describe what we do and what the value is. There's no real clear metrics and data for that. And that kind of carries us into where the market is now. Like if we were trying to find a job and we're trying to articulate the impact of our work, telling people that we're really great at retros doesn't really help differentiate your value. So some of the stuff we need to explore is going to be throughout that today. Well, so it looks like a steak, but this is meant to be a red ocean. There's this kind of notion of red ocean and blue ocean, and red oceans are where supply outstrips demand. So there's a lot of people out there looking for work, and there is very little demand for those roles. And we can see that everyone's fighting for the same space on the lifeboats to try and keep themselves going. And so a blue ocean strategy is to think about what value you can add, which may be outside of those specific roles. And actually, if we start thinking about that in a different way and the impact of our work, then maybe we can actually look at landing some interesting opportunities. But it's okay. I said to Helen before, don't worry, it will be okay. Things are going to be fine. It's going to be absolutely okay because things are changing. Although this week, as in today, I checked, there were 10 Agile coach jobs posted in the last week. Only 10. If you go back a year or two, that might have been 10 times that. However, 751 Agile delivery jobs were posted in the last week in the UK. Quite a big leap. And Scrum Master jobs are up as well, 467 in the last week that were posted in the UK. So lots of demand starting to grow, lots of kind of green shoots starting to appear, but there is a problem with that because, as I said, supply is outstripping demand. So for every one of those jobs, quite a lot of people are applying. This is one job that had been listed as a Scrum Master, and it had been live for 3 days, and that was 830 applicants for that particular job, and 244 today. So, yes, the jobs are starting to grow. Yes, the market's starting to lift. Positive stuff, but we need to be able to sort of stand out. And in that market, recruiters only have, I think there was some studies here. You can show you the data at the end here. The Ladders eye tracking survey. They spend about 7.5 seconds looking at your profile. Now that doesn't mean they only spend 7.5 seconds. That's enough for them to qualify you in or qualify you out. Do you have the right level of certification? Do you have the right level of experience? Are you in the right sector? Do you do the job already? They can answer these questions relatively quickly on the profile. So you don't have a lot of time to gather your story and tell your story. And that's what I want to sort of talk about today, really. So, okay, everyone off to the LinkedIn profile to update it. But no, don't worry about that just yet. We're going to go through some of these things today. We do have some people from not UK, from abroad today. So maybe this wouldn't necessarily help. I'm going to go a slide in a minute to show you this, but I wanted to explore this. I've got under the question open up. What do you currently use LinkedIn for? Because LinkedIn is one of those powerful tools that we're going to explore today. I want to see what you currently use it for. And again, profanity filter should be on. So, networking, good. That's really positive. Where else do we have? Job openings, keep interest on me. Oh, keep interest on me, as in like my own brand, building my personal brand, connecting with people, job search, job openings. Yep. And knowledge acquisition, that's a good one. Actually getting understanding of other people's stuff that they're sharing their team's posts, to own a profile. That's interesting as well. I like that one. So actually creating your own brand doesn't mean you have to be an influencer, but you can actually own your own thing. Sharpen own profile, understand people's perspectives, build brand awareness, contacts. Okay, so we have a few threads in there. Part of it is about building your own brand, a destination for people to find you. Part of it is about finding work, and part of it is about building knowledge and networking. Interesting. Okay. Great stuff. Thank you very much. If you're from the UK, you may recognize one of these. When I say from the UK, you might be from the UK and of a certain age. You might recognize these. This is called the National Record of Achievement. It was a folder that we all got in high school to basically keep hold of all of our certificates. And if you're of a certain age, you probably have this on a shelf somewhere. LinkedIn, however, is much more than just a collection of certificates or an online version of your CV. You know, it's a lot more than that. And the way I describe it is, well, sorry, yeah, it's been 84 years since I looked at my ROA folder. Um, the way that I describe this particular profile for LinkedIn is as a hub. It's like a hub and spoke model. So the hub really means that it's the center of your world is your profile, and you have these spokes sticking off of it. So your actual feed, the content that you see, your network, finding jobs, direct messaging, sending your own content out on there, commenting, liking, engaging. So there's lots of spokes out from it, and we're going to focus our first section on actually building the profile itself before we start looking at the impact of value that we've got in here. So let's start on a profile. I'll take you through an example profile, which is going to be mine. So what does it look like right now? Well, I've taken an example. I created a fake one just to sort of take us through it. It might look a bit like this, because if you haven't kind of needed to do much with LinkedIn, then potentially it's going to look a bit boring. It's going to look a bit empty. It's an old picture. It's got very little information on there. It's not very useful. So let's have a look at it. So we can fix some of these things. Um, let's start off with maybe the profile photograph. We have a bunch of these, right? Look at the usual suspects of photographs that you see on LinkedIn. You'll start off with the old passport photograph. That is me with hairband back in the day when I kept hold of it at least. Um, the Mobro, the person on the Movember keeping their mustache there. I think Jan, you probably still keep yours right now. The blue steel look, having a bit of fun with some sunglasses. Who's a good boy? He's a good boy. He's my boy. He's Richie. But putting the pets on there, I've seen that as well. The board picture, I've seen people having fun with these. My daughter putting my filter on my face and putting some eyelashes on. The holiday crop photograph, who cares? Who's going to see my picture? The dazed and confused from a wedding, the totally natural presentation selfie, of course. The midlife crisis wild swimmer. That is me, open water swimming in my midlife crisis. The cropped slide talker, the clearly cropped from a wedding photo, the Sam Ryder phase. This is where I didn't have that hair, that was a wig. So you can see that lots of different photographs up there, but they're not particularly useful in a professional environment. They should show your full face. We should have a big natural smile, use bright light or natural lighting and a very simple background and look at the camera. I know it's hard, but people need to look at you and see your face. So it should look something similar to this. Big shiny white teeth, plain background, and you see your full face in there. The reason why this is important is because your face is everywhere on LinkedIn. When you interact with things and you comment, your face is everywhere. So having that is important. Okay, this top section, the banner. How do I create an identity that kind of follows me around and shows my stuff there? Well, why do we need a banner? It's free real estate. We can put stuff in there. We can say to people before they even look at the profile, who am I? What do I do? And if a recruiter's looking at the profile and you've taken time to create your own brand identity and a little bit of work in there, you can go really far. Okay, so we've got some options. Yeah. Let's put some images in here. Let's see what we have. The corporate banker. Yep, so a picture of Canary Wharf or the Tropical Dreamer. Here's a lovely picture of Seychelles, I think it is. The Tenacious D gig. That is a picture of me at the Tenacious D gig. It was good fun, but it's not really relevant unless I work in entertainment. The Yes, I did see the Northern Lights this year and took a picture of it. Of course I did. No, these are not useful. They don't really tell a story. They just look at pictures that look nice. And you can do much more with that. Absolutely. Enter stage left, Canva. Canva is great. It's an awesome free online graphic design tool. You can pay for a pro account and you can do some extra stuff with it. But it's like Adobe Photoshop, but it's online and in the browser. It's really easy to use. Let's see what we can do with this. You can type in LinkedIn banner and it'll show you a whole heap of things there. I think that's 7,000 templates for a LinkedIn banner. You can click on customize that particular one that you like, and then you can edit it and you can double click on the text and change it to be your stuff and you can click on share to then download that particular image and upload it. Suddenly my banner is looking a bit more professional and so is my overall profile. I'm starting to tell the story. I'm starting to show the impact of the work I do. Okay, so now what? Okay, so the next thing maybe is your profile URL. Believe it or not, people don't know that you can change this. It's an editable feature on LinkedIn, and at the moment, it's probably have a whole bunch of letters and numbers after your name. So you can just simply click edit, change it to something else that's a bit more interesting, like Jon Spruce, Agile Coach, and suddenly it looks a little bit more professional. You can share that in your emails, you can share it in your posts. It just looks a bit more considered, and also it can start telling the story of who you are and what you do. Okay, so we have the about section next. Let's see what we have in there. You need to tell your story. If you don't tell your story, somebody else will. So you have to do it. And as you can see here, a few triggering things, Scrum capitalized and Kanban capitalized, and just a list of keywords. And look, I'm a great agile coach and everyone sees how awesome I am. It's like, it doesn't tell the story. You've got like 2,500 characters there to tell your story. So what can you do? You can be a bit more human about it. You can tell it in the first person. You can explain who you are, what you do, what interests you have. It becomes a little bit more about what you are and what you like to do. So what about the job experiences? Now, this is one of the big problems that people have writing about. And this is one I want to sort of focus a bit on today. So if you start looking at your experience aspect of your profile, sometimes it looks a bit like this, if there is anything there at all. One-liners, I do this thing, I make sure great agile happens, I do stand-ups, I help people with retros, I facilitate meetings, I'm awesome at all these things. But it doesn't really tell your story. Remember, they only have like 7.5 seconds skim reading your profile just before they go, well, are they in the let's have a chat to them later pile? And if you don't have stuff in here, it doesn't help your case. So the way I would describe this is taking back to my marketing days, we would sort of look at things in a way that we would sort of tell a story. Start with a problem, agitate that problem, come up with a solution for that, and then explain the impact. Or easier, what needs fixing? What happens if you don't fix it? What did you do to fix it? And then what changed or what's the impact? So when we're looking at these type of things and we're looking at the experience of our own jobs, I think it's important to start writing them in that way. Consider the problem that we solved. Don't just write that you did retrospectives. Talk about the fact that the team weren't improving. They weren't given time to continuously improve because their items were never taken, never actioned. So retrospectives were forgone. Well, we're not going to do retrospectives anymore because, well, you know, we never take any action. We always talk about it, but we never do anything with it. And that becomes a problem. So what happens if we don't do it? People get bored, they get actively disengaged, they're not improving over time. What do? We introduced retrospectives, but made sure those retros had clear actions. And the impact, well, we managed to improve the team's um, impact on quality went up, bugs went down, morale improved, code was deployed. Lots of interesting things you can tell. Most people only focus on the problem and the solution. They say, this was the issue, and I solved the problem this way. They don't really think about why they did it. So if I was to sort of think about that, I want you to think about something now. I'm going to give you some time on this. I want you to think of a work example like there was an issue with a retrospective. And I want you to think about um, how you're going to be able to sort of write that as a problem, an agitate, a solution, and an impact. Now, be courageous, write something in here, but don't worry, perfect is the enemy of good. I don't want you to think that this is the one that's going on your LinkedIn profile. I just want you to think slightly differently. I want you to think about the fact that we've got to write these things in a different way. The impact is often the hardest part of this, and that's because we don't keep track of the impact of our work. And that's one of the things that I'd like you to start considering. How do we demonstrate that impact? What has happened? What's changed? What's improved? I see people are interacting with this. People are typing in. Again, if you want to rejoin, if it's bounced out, you need to go to that URL, aharslides.com/ace spruce, and it'll allow you to join in and start typing into this as well. Wonderful. Okay, we have our first entry here. Help move a team from just running retrospectives to improving and taking action. We saw a 10% increase in morale and a 20% reduction of lead time. See, that's much more impactful already just by having a quick 1 or 2 minute writing to say, I was great at retrospectives. And actually, if you start thinking about these things, then you can start capturing that data in the day job as you're there. Okay, I can see that a few other people are typing away, so I want to see if other people are going to be courageous and share their thoughts. Whoa, wonderful. We've got another one pop in. My remote working team had limited psychological safety, and any attempts at facilitating retros with Miro resulted in minimal engagement. I facilitated a park bench and invited each team member to speak of their favorite holiday, then talk through the work challenges. All team members spoke. We collaborated to offer actions for change. Result, more open to speaking up. Exactly. This is the type of stuff we want to share. Mainly because when we're talking about retrospectives, people are quiet. They're not sharing for fear of not in getting engaged, not getting involved. But actually, by just giving them space, it could do. Here's another one: 25 teams, no proper structure, many to many communication lines. I raised awareness that talking is good, but we need to look for the signal to noise ratio. Collaboratively worked out a way to create team manifests and where they stated then whom the team is working with. Impact was clearer, simpler, value driven comms. There's another one that's popped up. This is wonderful, guys. Thank you so much for participating. Had a department faced with a challenge requiring 5 teams to collaborate to succeed. We helped establish coordinated level Kanban system and forecasting to allow effective steering of the effort. Exactly. So what we've now got is slightly different narratives and slightly more impactful ways of sharing this. You can see that a couple of people are still typing. I'm going to let one more kind of come up on screen and we'll move on to the next slide. But you can see that where we're coming from this is that if we can start articulating the impact of our value, then actually we can start selling it a lot more and selling ourselves a lot more. When I worked in advertising, we would always have an awards team running alongside the campaign. So people who were taking pictures of the work we were doing, screenshots, B-roll footage, and they would be packaging up an award video to put into the award shows at the end of each year. That award reel was something that then basically helped us understand the work that went in. And that's always kind of kept with me that if we don't articulate that impact as we go, then it's easy to forget. If we look back and I think about Aviva and some of the work I did 8 years ago with Aviva, I'm thinking, what was the impact of the work I did there? If I didn't capture it as I went, it's likely that I'm not going to be able to articulate it again. Look at this wonderful stuff. Thank you so much for putting all this stuff in here. Wonderful things. Thank you so much, guys. So as you can see, we've got a change now for the one that I've written here. Problem: Barclays Agile adoption was stuck. Teams were compliant but not empowered, and delivery remained slow. We agitate the problem. Despite the training, it still was a problem and frustrated the teams and the leaders. The solution for this one: coaching senior leaders to get lean portfolio management involved to help with some of this alignment on priority and streamlining the work that we were doing. Lead times dropped, we gained autonomy, and Agile finally drove real business value. So that has got all the titles in it, but I wouldn't put the titles in necessarily into LinkedIn. I'd probably get rid of the titles, and suddenly it becomes a condensed piece of copy, a little bit easier for me to drop in. Instead of it just saying, I did some good stuff at Barclays, it now has a good chunky piece of content, rich with keywords, but also tells the story of the work I did there. So keep this in mind when you're looking at this. You might have a a plethora of companies to go back through and rewrite, a bit like mine, but start with the most current one because that's the most fresh in your mind. Get those experiences updated. Don't forget, you can also add skills to each one of your jobs as well. It's easier to do that from the experience section rather than from the skills section. So you can edit it and say, here are the skills I add to my job. And yes, you can do the robot and add it in there as well. But make sure you put your skills in. It's a really key factor when recruiters are looking at your profile. They're also looking at how many years experience you have of a skill. And the only way they can really understand that is how many jobs have those skills linked to it. So if you've been doing Scrum for 10 years, but only have it on the most recent 6-month contract, it'll show your profile that you've got 6 months worth of experience. So make sure you tag those skills across the whole of it. Wonderful stuff. Okay, Marty, we need to change your headline. We have to go back. All right, let's go back to the headline. The headline on the profile is really important. It appears everywhere. Agile coach at Barclays. That's kind of okay. Agile coach building better banking products with Scrum. Better. It tells you who I am, tells you what I do. It starts to truncate this after about 75 characters. But you can see here that that thing shows up everywhere on your profile, when I'm looking on sharing it with other people, when I'm even commenting on people's stuff. That headline appears underneath my profile. As you can see, my lovely new picture, my little kind of line there that tells me in the headline. These are all things that start building your visibility of who you are and what you do. It's a real big important thing. It's a really impactful thing, and it's easy to do. It's yours, right? So at the moment, as you can see, my profile's already looking much better than it was before. What do you think? That kind of work, how we go. Of course, open to work is the next thing we need to do. If you're looking for work, of course, you don't have to if you're not looking for work. But if you are open to work, there's this big debate online. Do I show the green banner? Don't I show the green banner? Oh, it looks like I'm desperate if I've got the open to work frame on. But I mean, I really wouldn't listen to people who are talking like that because mainly, like if you're looking to get work and you want to be visible, not all jobs are going to be necessarily ones you apply for. If you are visible in the network and you can create that green open to work banner, you can also tell recruiters what stuff you're looking for, what job titles you're going to look for, what locations you're looking for, the type of contracts. And if you put it on there, you can say, actually, only recruiters can see it. But if everyone sees it, it actually makes sense. The current work I'm doing at the moment, I had a client who needed to cut the contract short due to geographical problems that were happening. And I was 3 months short on a contract. I was like, oh my gosh, I've ran out of runway for no fault of my own, but it's just these things happen. So I put the green badge on. I said I'm open to work, and somebody who had an internal job at a different firm contacted me directly. I didn't know you're looking for work, John. Let's have a quick chat. Booked a time in the next day, and I had a contract in hand on the Monday. It doesn't always happen that way, but I'm very visible on LinkedIn. I'm connected with a lot of people, and I actively work this sort of magic. I try to get there in there, try to get in as many people's faces, try to help people as much as I can. And by virtue of doing that, I'm more visible when I am looking for this help. So actually, when we put the green open to work banner on as well, don't worry too much as it looking desperate, because if you're looking for work, not everybody is a recruiter. All right. And the people who are hiring may just see you in the network and say, actually, I've got a job over here. And Helen might have been able to point me over at a piece of work she was doing that had got me in there. She may not have known I was open otherwise. So don't worry about it. Put the green banner on. It should be fine if you're looking for work. Good. All right. Happy days. We've now got our LinkedIn optimized profile. Brilliant. Okay. What's next? Well, growing our network is next. 23% of people find jobs through the network, not just job ads. So it's important to have a deep and valuable network. Only 3% actually have more than 500 connections on LinkedIn. Now, it's not a vanity metric. You should have deep and a wide network, not just to try and capture numbers, but actually, if you've been working around 5, 10 years in the industry, the likelihood is you're going to have a lot of people in your network. But if you're not connecting with people actively in lots of different areas, you're not going to be getting that visibility of your profile when you are looking for work. So your network is your net worth. It's a great book by Porter Gale. But it's an important thing. You've got to grow your network and you've got to proactively manage that. So you might have heard of this approach called the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. Everyone in Hollywood is connected to Kevin Bacon in 6 degrees or less, um, and mainly because he's been in so many things. And the way that LinkedIn works is very similar. You have different levels of connection. A first degree connection is someone I'm already connected with. So Ben and I are already connected, so we're a first degree. But for example, Ramesh in the call here, he may not know me, but he may know Ben. And so I would be a second degree connection. Now, it's a lot easier to connect with people who are second degree because there's a credibility, there's social credence. Like, well, Ben can always say that John's all right. You can connect with him. He's a pretty good guy. Third degree, nobody in your network knows anybody in their network. The bigger your network grows, the more likely you're going to have less of these. It's important to know these things because actually, if you want to connect, having a deeper, more valuable network can be really impactful. So what to do? What to do? What do we need to do with our network? Well, there are multiple ways to connect with people. Search initially for companies you've worked at and connect with the people that appear. If I filter by people, it will show me all the people in that company that I've already worked at that I'm not connected to, and I can click the buttons on the right hand side. So Harish, I know you. I'm going to click connect. What else? Well, we could follow the company because that's going to actually update my feed a lot more. People can see that I'm connected to that company. That's going to be very useful as well. I can also look at job ads. In this particular one, we have a job ad that came up today. As you can see, there are hiring managers appearing on the job ad. Well, there's no harm in connecting with these people, connecting and messaging them saying, hey, I'm interested in the role. It's really interesting. If you don't land that gig for whatever reason, you now have a connection with somebody who hires people like you. Maybe the next time round, you'll have an extra kind of network. So you've got people you know already, people that you might want to know, and people that are hiring. And that's kind of okay. The network is there. For example, here is a post from a guy called Anthony Melvin. He's talking about AI and ChatGPT and the kind of big stuff as well, some triggering things for Ben about AI. Um, I don't know him right now, and I don't want to necessarily just connect with him, but I can follow him. So I can click follow, and my feed will have his content in. And I can also engage with him as well. And by engaging and following, his network will see my profile. And if I'm looking for work and I'm very visible, you never know where that network lead might go. But wait, there's more. How else can we do this? Well, of course, the hardest box to fill in for those who have not done it before is the start your own post. We don't have time to get through that today, but I do want to sort of suggest and recommend that you're courageous and write something, not just on your own to other people's stuff, but actually something that will help somebody else. Share your own thoughts is a very scary box to fill in. But I recommend that if you do that, your network will grow, your visibility will grow, your impact will grow, and people will see you and be able to connect with you. And if you're looking for work or you want to be more impactful in the agile space, start writing something soon. And before long, you could be invited to one of these ACE talks, I'm sure. So, as we come up to a round on this one, and we have a little bit of time here, be the change. I'd like to have one final question for you guys. What one small step can you take this week to be more impactful with your own brand, with your own personal profile? Add words to this as much as you can, connect back to the aha slides, and then we'll finish off with a little bit of time for some Q&A. There we go. Some people are typing in. Brilliant stuff. Let's get some stuff on the wall. What one small step can you take this week to improve your impact? Make a new LinkedIn banner. Wonderful. There we go. Get onto Canva, make a LinkedIn banner. Be surprised how impactful it can be. You don't have to create a big brand either, right? But I think one of the interesting things about LinkedIn banners is it can tell a message. I can probably add in more detail about the roles I've done. We can always add more details, make sure they're more impactful as well. I write an update on the great book that I read now. That's good. That's really good. So if you're stuck on how to write content, actually writing about what you're experiencing can be really, really useful because you don't have to be the next big influencer and you don't have to be trying to change the world. I'm reading a book. Here's my thoughts on it. That's enough. Get it out there. Refresh my LinkedIn attributes, write another blog. Journaling, don't forget to record the fruits of my labor despite the chaos of work. This is interesting. Journaling is really useful. If you don't do it as a hobby or a habit, actually just writing down, you go, that was a great meeting. We did some cool stuff there. I'm going to take a note of that for later. Mural can be useful for that. Keeping notes in Grammarly or in note-taking apps on your phone can be useful. I know some people who just use verbal notes and they tell it to ChatGPT, hey chat, here's the thing that happened today, put it in your memory banks so I can come back to it later. Wonderful stuff. I think we've got enough people's thoughts in there. So we're into our final little chunk of time. Any questions? If you've been asking questions throughout the session, we should start seeing them up here. I don't think any questions have been asked just yet on the aha slides. So I can open the floor up. I can stop sharing my screen if that's helpful, Helen, and we can open the questions up.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, John. As you were going through, I was literally looking at my LinkedIn profile thinking, have I done that? Have I done that? Have I done that? So I think that's all very pertinent. So, what questions have we got from the group? Anything at all? You can pop it in the chat channel. You can ask your question directly out. Um, Ben's going to kick us off with a question, which is going to give us a little bit of time to think about it. So get your questions at the ready. Go, Ben.
Yeah, so John, we might have had a conversation about this a year or two ago, but in the chat earlier, someone mentioned about the open to work thing and said they felt it looks a bit desperate.
Yes.
And I know certainly in the UK, we tend to be a bit shy about just being honest, saying, do you know what I could do with a job or whatever. Do you have any thoughts or things to say about that on that choice to publicly say, put the ring around and go, I'm actually looking for some work right now?
Yeah, I do actually, and only from my own experience. And that's, as I said, this gig that I've been kind of working at for the last 18 months or so came from me using the green banner because the client before cut the contract short, and I had a conversation the next day because somebody saw it. Somebody was visibly seeing it. I was applying for work, of course I was, but then somebody actually saw it. Um, it's a difficult thing, but I think you've got to embrace your own story, your own narrative. If you're not telling people you're looking for work, if you're not being as open and as vocal as you can about it, then it's unlikely going to be seen by people who could possibly give you a job. So it's not just about applying for jobs, it's about being visible in the network. Not all jobs are advertised and not all jobs are on LinkedIn, but there will be people who work in your organization might say, do you know what? Actually, I didn't realize Ben was open. Ben, let's get him in. He's a good guy. And so actually being visible can be useful. It's about sort of swallowing that idea of pride and saying, well, I don't want to be kind of out of work, so I don't want to tell people I'm out of work, heaven forbid. But the problem that we have with that is that it will take longer to find a job. You can limit it, so you can say, I only want recruiters to see it. But the way that that works on LinkedIn is that means somebody who's paying for the recruiter platform, not somebody who's just listed a job. So you are limiting who sees you on LinkedIn, but again, it's part of the journey. If you're going to own your own narrative, sometimes it's important to be brave and courageous and say, look, I do need some help here, guys. What I've seen is quite useful is when you do post that, is to actually write a post saying, hi guys, I am available for work in these areas, in this sector. I'm open in these kind of environments. Please share it. Please help me out with this. I'm available now. I always recommend updating the profile before you do that, because then you've got a destination to send people with your story. Does
Thanks,
that
John.
help?
I would echo that as well. So being an independent contractor as I was for most of the last 10 years, some people might know about it, but they might not actually know how they engage you. And even if it's just saying, I'm looking for a client right now, that can be really, really useful. Certainly most of my work for the last decade, I think I can count on one hand the number of jobs or clients that came from me directly interacting with a recruiter. Nearly everything else has come through people speaking to me or hearing of me online, I think.
Yeah. So again, you don't have to be trying to build yourself as an influencer or a thought leader. Just by being visible can make a huge difference, and actually owning your own narrative. I'm available for these things, I'm not available for them things, but this is the thing that this is what I do.
Yeah. Fab.
I've
Cool.
got another question in the chat channel before we go to the aha tool.
Okay.
So what the question is, what is your strategy for content creation?
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one. I think there's a mixed bag of things, and part of it, but there's a thread that goes through all of my content creation kind of strategies, and something I'd recommend is that try try not to make it about you. Try to make it about the reader. So what I mean by that is there'll be things that that you've worked on that you think is like it's just second nature that everyone should know that. But actually there'll be people who are beginning their journey who are just starting this stuff out that would value your opinion, value the stuff you're doing. And so I would think that the one thing to keep as a thread through is how can I help other people? And I think if you can sort of help them with, here is a retro template for sailboats and anchors, or here is a way that I managed to help with um, a difficult stand-up, or a product owner who doesn't like this, or I don't understand Kanban very well, so I learned about it and here's some things about it. Sharing out what your experience is will help you connect with an audience. It also helps you kind of show that you're helpful and show that you're connecting with it. So I think that that's important. Um, be humble with the work and engage in the content. So even if you had one person comment, one person like, respond to those comments and likes because their network will see your comments. Their network might be the people who are hiring you in. As Ben said, you never know where that next opportunity comes from. And actually, if you're visible and owning that narrative, it's highly likely that you'll put yourself in a good position for it.
I like to create blogs. I've been trying to do one a week, and it could just be on like a real simple thing, something like been on a course this week and I've learned some new words. And I
Hmm.
thought, well, if I didn't know that, other people didn't know that. So I just thought I'm just going to write about it. So it doesn't have to be like, super deep thinking, out there. It could just be something completely simple.
Yeah, I agree with that. I saw that today actually with the hearts kind of on the video side of things, and don't get turned off by that. The you don't have to have create like really deep video, short kind of reels and stuff. It can be really hard to create that kind of content. Just commenting about stuff you've seen, commenting about this event tonight would be valuable. Like this is other people don't know it's existing. Here's the YouTube video for it. This is interesting. That's content. That's helping people signpost them as well. I know a person who was trying to get more speaking opportunities. So she joined Toastmasters and what have you. Couldn't work out how to write content, but she's got very eclectic music tastes. So she decided to think about, well, if I take one line from each of these random songs, could I write a post about it? And well, as soon as she got that, she unblocked her writer's block straight away. So she used that as a way to sort of springboard into writing loads of content. So again, it's just get started is the easy thing to say, but can often be very hard. One thing to just to advise is that it might seem very scary, but the majority of the community is very accepting and very helpful. We're all here just to help people, right? So be brave.
So we've got one question on your slides and two in the chat channel. So let's go to your question first. So does your evidence of demonstrable experience have an expiry date? If how regularly would you realistically recommend reviewing and updating your story?
An interesting one, this, because the further back you go in your career, say if you had a meandering one like mine, having stories which still have impact and value, which is 10 years old, may not seem very useful. I wouldn't go back necessarily and dust them off. I might rework them a little, but I wouldn't necessarily change the data. What I would be looking for is updating the more recent stuff. So the evidence, I suppose, is over the last sort of 2 or 3 years. If I've got a job that I've been working at for those 2 or 3 years, I might put the first piece of data, first piece of evidence in there, if you like, after the first 6 months. After the next 6 months, I might add something else. I think there isn't necessarily a hard and fast rule of the expiry date for any demonstrable experience. But what I would say is that it's important for us to recognize that if we keep on capturing the information and updating it, it's only going to make us more relevant. So rather than going back in time and deleting or removing or reducing the content, I would just look at updating the more recent stuff, the last couple of jobs really. Every time that you do something, oh God, that was a really good retrospective, or I've just presented to the leadership team and we've just saved 2 million quid off the program. That's amazing. Or even just the team are feeling much happier. That's great. Put that in the experience, but also write some content about it.
I think this next question is quite pertinent. It comes from Patricia,
Okay.
who's been a bit of a career break, looking after her parents for the last 5 years. So, what do you do with a career break on LinkedIn? How would you go about, like, should you put it in there? Because that's one of the things that recruiters always notice. Well, what were you doing for the last 6 months? What do you think?
So, my opinion on this is to be authentic. Always be authentic on this stuff. Explain to people what you've been going through, where you're kind of what you've been up to, as much as you'd like to share. Of course, there may well be stuff that you wouldn't want to share about personal family things. The fact that it's you've taken a sabbatical and you've openly done that is absolutely fine. I think the important thing is that you people sometimes feel that you can't be fully human and fully yourself on these platforms. And I think it's finding the right balance. If the last job you did was 5 years ago, also managing the expectations that you may not be doing the same job when you go back, and you may need to be thinking about transferable skills into other roles that might be a bit more relevant. But I think I would always be as open as possible. There's a person I know who'd taken some time out due to some illness. There's another person I know who took time out because his wife passed away and needed to take time out. And he's been really honest and open about that on his profile. And it connects to him as a human. And so he actually found a role because somebody was like, mate, I want to give you a chance on this. I could see that prior to this you were smashing it. Let's have a chat. So again, authenticity is key, I think.
Yeah, the questions are coming in thick and fast now. So this question's from Greg. Once in a role, how do you like to articulate the value an agile coach brings to an organization? Are there some obvious ones that you like to use, which are measurable in setting meaningful objectives? I think Greg had his hand up, so he might want to add some extra context in there, or he's just waving.
It might just be
I was
waving.
just waving, saying hello.
Oh, hey, how you doing, Greg? Okay. It's a great question. And in fact, actually, we've got an agile practice at the defense client I'm working at the moment, and this pops up quite a bit. Simply because the way that the agile practice, as in the coaches and the scrum masters, are funded by the program of work we're in. And being able to demonstrate value can take away those conversations where it's like, so what are you doing here then? Why can't I buy an engineer instead of buying you guys? And apart from just helping people do good agile things, actually anchoring it into what is incentivizing the program is very useful. In our particular program, time and money is very important. It's MOD contract. We have to deliver a certain product by a certain time. And money is really, really important. And it's directly linked to the labor cost of the program, essentially. So, how do we demonstrate the value in that space? Well, can we remove waste from the system? Is there a way to articulate waste at all, or blockages, impediments, delays, risk? How do we articulate those things? And if we've articulated them, how do we articulate that we've removed them? That's the important thing. Now, this is really interesting because I've articulated that we've got this big waste in the system. We've value stream mapped out the end-to-end process, found the big bottleneck, found the impediment to that. If we've got data before and we remove it, we'll have data after, and that might save a week on the program. But a program of 500 people for a week, that's an awful lot of money and time that we're saving across a really complex program of work. You don't need to have a very big, complex program of work to articulate this type of stuff. Think about the way we're talking about value, and some of those metrics around time, around quality, around value delivered, around waste in the system. These things will start to bubble up. And if you can start categorizing them in things like retrospectives or in reviews or how you're seeing these things, you can start bucketing them in by the pile and not only tell them back to the organization you're in, look at all this stuff we've managed to help you solve, but also you can articulate that in your own profile for when you are looking for the next role as well. Hope that helps, Greg, and welcome.
We'll go to Edward next, and then we'll hit Flores.
Okay.
So Edward says, I dislike sharing my unsolicited opinion in the internet universe, rather than a safe place like a private meeting with the full context. How do you overcome this fear? And I guess we've all been there. We've made a
Yeah.
comment, and then all of a sudden the trolls come out, and it absolutely scares you. I mean, what do you do in this instance? How can you be brave and not worry about that stuff? How can you overcome that fear?
So we all know people who not only revel in inviting the trolls, but are very divisive in the way that they write content. You don't have to have an opinion on things. You can, uh, you can get started by just like ripping off the band-aid and saying, Helen, that was a really nice post. Thank you so much for sharing. That's enough to start building your engagement. And when you start feeling that you want to put your opinion across and go, well, actually, Helen, I don't believe Kanban's really great. And then all the people come out of the woodwork. There's a saying that don't feed the trolls. The more that you engage with them, the harder it becomes. And I know Kanban's awesome, Helen. She's put it in the chat there. I know that if you feed the trolls, they're only going to keep coming back. And for your own sanity, for your own kind of mental health, part of the stuff you can use is blocking people who are abusive if they're being horrible. But if people are being critical or just challenging in the content, you can sort of respond with, "That's great. Thank you for your opinion. I really appreciate it," and kill them with kindness, essentially. So don't try to get involved in the flame wars of is Agile dead? Is safe this? Is Kanban that? What should we do? Where should we move? Is project management back? Oh my God, waterfall's back. What's going on? You don't have to get involved in those type of debates. If you do feel like you need to and you get those trolls coming out, just be appreciative for their point of view because you're not going to be able to change their mind and they can't change yours. So you can be a little bit more, thanks for your opinion. The world's a very complex place. I really appreciate the fact that you've commented. That's all you really need to do. Or you can get involved with like some of the people that we know and really go to town. But it depends how much time you have in a day, really. Hope that helps.
I like to live by the principle of don't be a douche.
Yeah, that's also a good way to do it. Uh, some people enjoy being a douche.
There's actually a coach that some of us know whose whole online persona is all sort of effing and jeffing
Yeah.
and sweary, horrible, vitriolic stuff. And I was on a contract with them years ago, and it was the only time I've ever seen a contractor excluded from a team meeting because they bring the mood down. And there's been a couple of times where they've been really trolly in conversations happening, and I'm thinking, I don't need the clients that would hire that person.
Yeah.
I just don't. So if that's their thing, let them do it, but it doesn't need to, I don't need to engage. No.
Yeah, and if you're getting that on LinkedIn, for example, you can always block people, you can remove connections, and the
Yeah.
feed updates relatively quickly, and you stop seeing that kind of thing. Hope that
Some
helps.
people are also chronically online and have the time just to wind everyone up. So,
They do, yeah.
sometimes you like like you were saying, feeding the trolls.
Yeah.
So let's go to Flora. She's been waiting patiently. So
She
it
has.
sounds like Flora has been working in a company for 10 years. So she doesn't have like, ever-changing career history. Not a bad thing. But, should she be listing the projects that she's worked on in that company over the 10 years?
Yes, you should. Absolutely. So another so I obviously I might not have said this at the beginning, but I mentor and support people through their job transitions and their career. One person I helped had been at a company for 15 years and they just had in their LinkedIn profile one line item, 15 years at the company. I do some stuff here. And when we actually dug into it, she'd been on lots of different projects over the whole period of time. And on LinkedIn, you can have multiple roles at the same company. So if you tag the same company in the experience and say 2001 to 2003, 2003 to 2005, 2005 to 2007, it will create multiple entries underneath the same company. And then she was like, well, okay, so I worked on this particular project. Here's all the stuff I did for that. I worked on this project. Here's all the stuff I did for that. And before you knew it, she actually had 15 different projects across this whole period that all had different impact, all had different roles. And it was really important. So you can include projects as a section in your LinkedIn profile, but I wouldn't necessarily put it there. I would recommend putting it as experiences within the same job for the same company. Longevity is not a bad thing, as Helen said. It's very rare these days for people to have such a long career in one organization. The longevity is positive, but instead of it being I am just one person doing one job for that 10 years, the likelihood is across that whole 10-year period, you've grown and changed and worked on many projects. Articulate them, use that structure we said before: problem, agitate, solution, impact for each one of them, and then start adding content to that as you go through. You'll soon find that you've actually got a lot more to say about each one of those jobs, Flora. And thanks for waiting. We were too busy chatting away.